Hello, hello, hello. Oh, can you hear me, Angel Face? Give me a yes or no if you can hear me. Oh, good. Yeah, this is the same microphone I always use. What happens over on StreamYard, I think they keep me turned down really low, StreamYard does, because I kind of got rid of them, and I think it might be payback because nobody's ever complained about not being able to hear me on YouTube. So it might be a little bit of payback because I'm not on StreamYard. That's just my idea. I'm glad you came over, Angel Face. We we wanted to make sure that it was not my fault. And all my equipment is working the way it should. Um, I don't know. Let me see. I don't know how to share. Let me see if I can find. Um, no, I don't know how to share on here. If I could bring one up, I would. Let me see if I. How the hell would I share? Um, well, I've written over 1,000 songs. I think there's 300 that has been published. Um, I like doing songs for people that want a song. Maybe they want me to write a love song from them to their wife, or from a wife to a husband, and express in music how they feel about their spouse, knowing that they don't have the capability of doing that. I like doing that part, making a song where I can express the love between one mate and another mate, um, in a very loving way, um, and it makes me feel good knowing it's made somebody happy. Um, those are the kind of songs I like to do. So far, I've probably written songs for everybody that I know. Yesterday, I did the one I really liked. Um, Put the bottle down, about getting off alcohol. I myself drink and have drank for over 80 years. I have drank alcohol. We used to have we used to have alcohol before going to school. When I was in the first grade of school, my mama would make me a hot toddy of whiskey, sugar, and warm water, so you wouldn't be cold going to school. It was called a toddy for the body, and so we drank ever since I was in the first grade of school. I've had coffee ever since I was 3 years old. I've been drinking coffee for 82 years. I drink. What the thing is, what I'm saying is, if you're having a problem, lay that bottle down. There's no solution in a bottle. Uh, if you can socially have drinks, and I do, um, I'm not preaching the harm or the sin or nothing like that about the bottle. I'm just talking about, hell, if you can't handle a little snort up the nose with some cocaine, leave it alone. If you can't do a doobie without getting all messed up, leave it alone. I mean, live your life where you're in control of your life. If you can have social drinks and enjoy life, I say do so. No, my job is not to condemn or to judge anybody. But I wrote the song for those that has an addiction. For the people that has an addiction, just leave that bottle alone. It's not gonna bring you happiness. It's gonna bring you more suffering, sorrow, and misery. If you're of that nature. Now there are some people that are just really happy people. They I know I've been drinking Coke. I drink Coca-Cola. I've been drinking Coke all of my life. That's the reason I know so much about Coca-Cola. A little bottle was a nickel, and when it went to 7 cents, that was devastating. Well, first of all, if you could find somebody to break a nickel for you and give you 5 pennies, then you would have enough. Then you had another nickel and put 2 pennies, you'd have enough for a drink. It was always a dilemma. Uh, you might work and mow a lawn and get a nickel for mowing a lawn, but then you'd have to mow another lawn to get another nickel so you could break the nickel to have 2 pennies. It was a dilemma. Well, my hair looks pitiful. I just got out of the shower a while ago and I didn't air dry my hair. I got to do something on beard. I got to put it in a ponytail. Yeah. Yeah, to break a nickel. So, one thing about having pennies in your pocket, if somebody says, "Man, I need a penny. I just need one more penny," you'd give a guy a penny. It wouldn't break you to give him a penny so you could get a Coke. And so back in them days, some days when you'd walk up there and you didn't have a penny, somebody would break the nickel for you so you could have a penny. You never. It's hard to believe that there was a period of time when a penny was a very useful tool. Your pleasure could be denied for a penny. That sounds odd to think about. Your pleasure could be denied for a penny, but that's the way it was. I wish I knew some way of bring. I'd like to bring you up a song. Let me see what. Maybe I can do it this way. I'm gonna try. Here's a song I wrote for Angelique. I enjoyed this. I tried to tell her how much I love her and how important her life is to me. Let me see if I can play this. No, it ain't gonna let me play it. All yeah.
Angeline, oh Angeline, you are so loved. Your heart is so big. Your smile warms my heart. You are a grown woman that brings me much love. Your life is my life. We share our thoughts, sweet love. Movie nights we love. Taking long motorcycle rides across this beautiful land. Oh, Angeline, your smile's my heart. Oh,
Thanks, Mono. Thanks for coming over. It's live stream. I think they sent me another message the other day. They want me to join back up with them, and I think every time I go on, they mute me. I've noticed they take my sound away. I noticed that I can speak and nobody can hear me on StreamYard. There's my baby sister, Connie. She's out of the hospital. Good morning. I hope you can hear me, Connie. Rob's neighbor. Hey, buddy. Hey, Stick. My eyebrows are out of control. Carney's right. Hey, Carney. City Nerd. I've never. I don't think I've ever done. I've never seen. I don't know what it. Well, tell me what City Nerd's about. Yeah, Angel Face, tell me what City Nerd's about. Oh, hey, Rob's neighbor, my sister Joyce, her husband rode a 175cc Scrambler Honda from Southern California to Eastern Washington on a 175. That was a pretty good ride for a 175, 1,200 miles. Got good gas mileage. That was back in 1970. You know, the Shade Tree Surgeon, he rode a small mini bike all the way from Florida to Canada, using mostly the back roads, and he had a good trip. They had a good time. Sounds like an interesting show. Yeah, the inner complexity, the city, how complex the layout, especially if you got a subway or any kind of a tram system in your city. I found San Francisco to be an interesting city of all the trolleys and stuff. Now, I'm talking about, I was there in the 60s, and in the 60s, San Francisco was really a great town. Had one of the best Chinatown, had some of the best Chinese food in the world. We ate it in Chinatown. Oodles of noodles. We had oodles of noodles and puppy patties. Yeah, sound like Carney had a really good weekend. We had some storms here. We got another storm coming in today, tonight, and it's going to be stormy tomorrow. Yeah, Wednesday it's going to be stormy. But if I don't get too much rain on Wednesday, I'm going to mow my lawn Thursday. I've been putting it off for a couple of days. I got to go get a new filter. I got to change the oil filter. I try to change mine every 25 hours on the engine. It's a Kohler engine, so I've got right at the 25-hour mark. 25 hours of mowing hours. It's not low on oil. I just need to change it. For some unknown reason, I enjoy mowing. One time I was stationed there at Lackland Air Force Base, and we went out to a place called 700 acres at 700 Acre Hills, and a guy had an Italian 125 that was really a hot machine, a little two-stroker, and golly, I don't remember what the Motor Guzzi. No, it had an Italian name. Boy, that thing was fast. It was like a little exploded bomb between your legs. You know, you tweak that throttle and man, it would go. A 125. I couldn't believe how much horsepower that thing had. I drove a drag racing car with headers, two 4 barrels, all the stuff from Central California to Washington State. It had 456 gears in it, and every red light from Central California to Washington was a drag race. Oh man, that thing was awesome. It had a Mopar engine in it, 383, built to the hilt. We used to have a guy that built our camshafts. He built the camshafts for that Mopar engine in Fresno, California. His name was Art Shedler. Art Shedler built these cams that he could get some high RPMs out of a Mopar B block. You know, man, he built some good camshafts. You take a hydraulic camshaft, you take it into him, and he would shape the profile on the camshaft with overlap and everything. He would dial it in, and then you'd use solid lifters. He'd take a hydraulic cam, reprofile it, flash harden it, and change out the solid lifters in it, adjustable lifters. And you could wind that Mopar block up, and it would turn. Yeah, 456 gears in a Mopar. Well, if the big block Mopar, they make a lot of torque. So yeah, it was awesome. It had a true torque flat transmission in those days, a 3-speed automatic at torque flat. Not the new 727 style aluminum. This is the old cast iron. You couldn't blow them up. They were indestructible. the old torque flat transmission. Man, you put the Kevlar clutches in it and change the valve body and stuff, and when you'd bang through the gears there, it would turn the tires over. I had a 500cc BSA single. It was had a large 21-inch front tire, uh, a, a very light rim, and it was a wheelie machine. That thing it had so much torque, it would just wheelie. Uh, and then I rode it in Coos Bay, Oregon, a 500cc Honda. Um, it was awesome too. It had a lot of power. When Honda began to come out with the water cooled 2-stroke engines, like they had a 3-wheeler that had the water cooled engine on it, water cooled 250 Elsinore type engine. And that thing made a lot of horsepower, and it was an awesome riding machine. At 500 Honda, it was a torquey machine, but I was a big guy, so I enjoyed the extra torque. And when you got a paddle tire on the back in the dunes, you got that good thumping torque, and you could see when the wheel was turning over, you could see it was just throwing just big cups of dirt out the back. It would do a great rooster tail. Twerking. I think it'd throw my back out if I tried to twerk. Old men can't twerk, because you have things that rattles on you. So CB250R, they gave me they brought it up from California, and my sister Connie, that's in here, when they unloaded the CB250R, I've never ridden one before in my life, and so I went out there and rode it around a little bit, and my sister Connie said, "Give me a ride." So it says right on the gas tank, "One rider only." So she hopped on the back, and we rode around in the valley of the dunes. On both sides of us was real tall dunes. So we got over in what they call the Pro Hill, and that was 750 feet high. From where we was at, it went up 750 feet. And she said, "Let's do the hill." So we take off up the hill, and I shifted going up the hill, and I'm running really, really fast. But as I got real steep, I had to downshift. And when I downshifted, the back wheels went up over our heads. And I got my hand hung up over here and broke my wrist. But Connie, it crushed on top of her and broke her vertebrae and stuff in her neck, her shoulder bones. And it put her in the hospital. But it pulled the tendon off my spine. So they take her to the hospital in Coos Bay. And I drove 400 miles home and went in the hospital for 28 days. I stayed in Tacoma General for 28 days. They had to put me in tractions, 54 pounds of weight on my legs. And then they had to keep me asleep for 14 days. They put me asleep for 14 days. And yeah, it was a tragic day on the CB250R. It was an awesome machine, but you got to heed the warning. Hey, 24. She suffered. Connie has had so many operations and stuff to try to repair her over the years. Now, they repaired me by staying in the hospital 28 days. They reattached my tendon on the spine. And yeah, life takes its toll. And then in '85, I bought myself a Suzuki quad, and it had a real fast two-stroke engine on it. And we had it souped up. They put a DG pipe on it, an expansion chamber, and we was in Moses Lake, and I went off the top of a dune at about 45 miles per hour. I went off the top, and somewhere down through there, I faded to black. But I remember the impact of landing. It broke my leg. It broke my right femur. It broke my eye right here. Right here. It broke the bone. I had a new Bell helmet. It crushed the Bell helmet. It broke the front here. I broke my jaw right there. It broke my jawbone there. I had a hard time recovering. That was in 1985, July the 4th, 1985. 10 years later, my sister went with me to the doctor, and they found a huge cancerous tumor growing in my right leg and the femur from that wreck. When I had the wreck in 85, I cracked the femur from the knee up, and a tumor growed inside there. The tumor was 2¼ inches long inside my femur. So they tell me, with my sister sitting there, they're going to have to remove my right leg above the knee, and they're going to go in and take the hip bones and reconstruct me where my femur was destroyed. And I would be 1 year in recovery. That's from a Suzuki quad racer. So we decided to move to Alabama so I could recover and have my surgery at UAB, where they could cut my leg and take the bones out, reconstruct me a right leg. And we come down here, and I've got myself a great oncologist, Dr. Jaffe, in the UAB. UAB is a leading medical facility here in the Southeast. And yeah, I've had some history with machinery. I know about pain. I can tell you about pain, but I ain't going to dwell on it. I'm not going to bring anybody's day down with that kind of crap. Life is good, man. You gotta embrace your life. Enjoy every moment of it. Hell, there's gonna be some rough spots. I'm living in the good portion of my life now, where I'm sort of capitalizing on all the mistakes I made back when I was younger, so I can tell you folks about what to do and not to, or what not to do. Hey, Adventures of Kifa. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I knew I had not changed anything in my sound system. It was StreamYard. I think they just simply kind of throttled me back on StreamYard. That's just my opinion, because I haven't re-upped with them, and well, that's good. And Angel Face, you was one that suggests coming over here, spend a little time, and we're not going to spend no time whining about nothing. Life is too good to whine about anything. Yeah. Well, the only thing I'm having to drink. Oh, by the way, congratulations to four on your third or fourth day with no cigarettes. Man, you don't know how many years I spent at the tracks. My brother and I, we raced when we was young, and we used to do a lot of flat tracking and TT racing. Um, we just did a lot of racing. Loved it. My problem is, when I was young, I was long and lanky, and I sat real high in the saddle, and I could actually use that as an advantage in a long way. I had long legs too, and I could put that leg out there and do it when I raced with a hot shoe. I could use that as an anchor. In other words, I could use that shoe there to ride on the bottom of that shoe. You could jack that wheel out over there, and we were the masters of dirt back in our day. We loved dirt. We liked racing on the dirt. And hell, I could ride without any hands in the sand dune. I mean, I had balance, man. I had good balance. I could make the machine work. That was then. You know, your youth develops memories of wonderful things that you have to reflect back upon. Some of the great people you've seen riding. I got a friend. He's gone now, but him and we used to race together. Tim Shefflin was one of the greatest riders I've ever rode with. This guy, he was AMA certified. You know, he had his AMA license, and he was really good. He would take people's bikes and put their jacket on and put their helmet on, and he'd go up there and do these real get up high in the air and jack the bike out around him and and do a one hand jump, and they would take pictures and pretend that was them doing the jump, but it was him doing a jump on their bike. And these guys would take the pictures and blow them up and put them on their desk at work. And people walk by and they go, "Oh man, you was out doing some serious riding this weekend." It wasn't them at all. It was my buddy Tim doing that stuff for them. Titanium hardware, aluminum airbox. Hmm. Yeah, Tim was he was a hell of a man. He was in the Army Rangers, and we used to go out and do these search and rescue missions. And we had another little buddy. He was a Navy SEAL, and he was with us. And some of the adventures we got in, uh, they were amazing stuff. We did a lot of things. The search and rescue teams would fly us in by helicopter, and they would fly us up 14,000 feet or 12,000 feet and set up a base camp. But they would fly us in, drop us down. We'd stay up there for a week, and we'd build us an ice house. we, we'd get in there and set up all the communication. And in the old days, we had beeline locators and stuff so that when a downed aircraft was in the vicinity, the emergency marker would send out a beep, 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 and we'd use the beeline locator. And what you do is you would triangulate that signal. So when a plane would fly overhead, it would pick up your triangulation, and then they could pinpoint where the downed aircraft was at. Hey, keep on, buddy. I'll be watching you today. Go have lunch with your daughter. Oh, that's a great thing. Enjoy it. Enjoy your day. Oh, and Brainy, she liked the song "Put the Bottle Down," and I was thinking of her when I wrote the song because she has made some major changes in her life, and look what a smile, endless smile. There's having a drink and enjoying a drink and being sociable is one thing, but when it becomes an addiction, when it becomes a crutch where you have to use it to get through life, you're not living. So I that song struck a lot of hearts out there, and I'm glad it did. Yeah, let me tell you about extractions. They took us in. We was in a sheriff's helicopter, and I got a buddy that's one of them kind of like brain dead buddies. He'll do anything, and he ain't afraid of nothing. But he's a little bit. He's just well, his elevator don't go to the top floor. Let's put it that way. They give us clear instructions when we get into the LZ. You're not to touch you don't touch. It was a Huey helicopter. You don't touch the runners or nothing. Once you depart, you get on that runner and you jump off the runner onto the ground. You don't reach back and touch that runner for no reason. Oh, my buddy, he jumps out and he to stabilize when he landed, his head was about where the runner was here. He just grabbed a hold of that runner. When his hand got within 2 inches of that skid, lightning streaks lightning streaks came off that helicopter into his body, and he lit up like a you only do it once. Yeah, we did an extraction there where we had to take out 5 bodies. We had five we had 5 victims we had to take out, and they could only take. It was such a rugged terrain. We were right close to Mount Rainier, 12,000 feet, and it was such rugged terrain. The helicopter had a lot of updrafts, and he was doing all he could to hover where they could get the basket down there to load the bodies on one at a time. So we got all the bodies loaded into the helicopter one at a time, and they had to carry it away and come back, get another, carry it away and come back, get another. And the prop wash, when you're under there trying to stabilize so you get a body bag into this thing, yeah, and especially at 12,000 feet, the temperature was around minus 30 degrees, minus 30. And if that prop wash blowing down on the top of you, the wind chill factor it was cold. You knew, you knew you wanted this operation over with in a hurry. Yeah, it's best to get AI, Angel Face, to do your wheeling and stuff like that if you can't do it yourself. Um, but my buddy Tim, he would do that for people. And one time this guy kept telling him, he said, "No, I want you to go further across." He was jumping from one dune over to another dune, and he had to be doing 80 or so miles per hour to make the jump. And this particular time, he didn't get his speed up, so he knew he wasn't going to make it to the other dune. So he bails off. He bails off the bike, and of course, his body being lighter, it landed on the dune, and he rolled a few times, but the bike went into the dune head first, and there was parts blowing off that. It was a 450 Honda, and there was parts blowing off that thing. Every bit of the plastic was tore off, and it was a basket case. When he got through, he walked away. Tim did. He walked down there, and they was picking up all the parts off the new bike. That was a pretty expensive picture for that guy that wanted him to go a little bit more, a little bit further. And old Tim took it to the edge, but his bike didn't survive. We was over in, you talking about blowing snow. We were in Montana, and I was on the Minuteman Project, and I was stationed out there at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls. Well, we were down there. They sent us to Harlow Town, which is over in the central portion of Montana, Harlow Town. And it was that morning, it was minus 55 degrees. Minus 55 degrees. And I had to go make a trip to the honey bucket, which is outside the gate of the Minuteman silo. You have to go outside the gate. And they got a rope down there. So the reason you have to have a rope is in a blizzard, you have to have the rope to pull yourself to get back to your trailer, your construction trailer. Well, I went down there and got in the little honey bucket. And while I was sitting there was ice blowing through the little vents in the honey bucket. And that stuff was like little BBs. It was hitting so hard. The wind was blowing 70 miles per hour. Whoa, golly. It was cold. You certainly had to line the seat with toilet paper, otherwise you'd butt stick right to the seat. And you certainly don't want to have to call for your buddies. And when the wind's blowing 70 miles per hour, nobody can hear you 50 feet away. And you can scream all day long down there, to try to get somebody to pull you up off the seat. But chances are that's how they'd find you later, is stuck to the seat. Man, it's so good to see some of you fine folks showing up there this morning. The only chore I got to do today is I've got to go get a oil filter for my Cub Cadet. And I got to change the oil today because I'm going to mow Thursday. That's because it's going to rain tonight and tomorrow. I'm hoping going to dry up so I can do the upper part of the yard. We're just happy. I remember you went through a health scare last year and had us all worried to death. We're just happy you're here with us. I think you said your wife cracked some of your ribs giving you CPR. We had at the company, we had a guy to go down and the alarm went off that all of us that was CPR certified, you're supposed to be first responder. So I got over and I happened to be the second responder. The guy got there just before me. And he was a big guy, and it was right after lunch. And when the guy rolled him over on his back, he regurgitated, and it looked like Old Faithful coming straight up out of there, That guy just took his hand and cleaned his face off and got down and did the thing and got him back alive. It would have been my turn up had he not got there first, but he got there first. So And that guy laying on the floor was my friend. We were friends for many years. Now he survived. He survived that episode, but he went on to die later. Not that day, but a year or two later. And but to know how to perform CPR, and I mean, if you're doing it right, you're going to crack some ribs. There's a good possibility of it. I'm gonna probably I'll probably go over to the Cub Cadet store. There's one in Warrior. They're so overpriced on everything. But if I went to to what the hell, the Orange Lumber Company, Home Depot. Home Depot also has oil filters that will fit that 24 horsepower Kohler. It's a Kohler engine. They probably should get it at Walmart, but I'll just probably go to the dealer. That's closer. You just have to pay more. Uh, when we were when we was taking a refresher course, everybody was required. When you work on the Minuteman program, one of the things that you have to be able to do, you have to be CPR certified. You also have to pull somebody from the deep hole. In other words, if there's somebody down there, you got to put them in a gurney, and you got to do the thing by hand to lift a 175-pound person up by hand from 180 feet down. You're 180 feet down in the bottom of the deep hole, and you got to do this. And that's part of the test. Now, you don't lift a real human being in the test. You lift what is equivalent to a 175-pound male. It's canvas clothes filled full of sand that equals to the size and the weight of a human. And I'm gonna tell you, you get up 100 feet up. Now, see, when you let up on it, it has a self-locking device, so it can't just, if your hand slip, it ain't gonna burn your fingers, whatever. So you're pulling and constantly pulling. And boy, I'm telling you, when you get up about 100 feet with somebody, you're going, oh, please let me have enough strength to finish it. Because in real life, his life depends. I think there's going to be a certain amount of adrenaline. If you knew a worker, a friend of yours was in that gurney and on the way up, I think the adrenaline would allow you to be more, stronger. But without the adrenaline, you have to really pull energy from the muscles to do that job. But yeah, we were doing this refresher course, and my supervisor ahead of me, he just before me, he had to go up and certify first. And they've got this little thing. If you have an issue of putting your mouth on the dummy, you have a dummy that's got lights, and you can tell when you're giving the right amount of air, the lights will go on and let you know that you're breathing correctly for the dummy. So you get your lips sealed real good, and it's the easiest way of doing it. But they have a prophylactic thing that you put in their mouth. It's very thin rubber, and you're breathing through that rather than putting your mouth against possibly cold sores or whatever on the lips. Well, the boss, when he got up there, he decided to use the prophylactic. So he stuck it in there, he followed the procedure. There's instructions on how to insert them. So he gets down on there, and when he pressed his lips against this very thin rubber, it went like, he was blowing, so like he was farting, and everybody in the whole room was laughing and everything. Oh yeah, the best way to do is suck it up, Bippy, and get up on there and do your thing and get him back to life. Yeah, 22 minutes of CPR on you, buddy. You are very blessed. Yeah, my boss, when he came back, he was so embarrassed. You know, I told him, I said, you should have just ripped that thing out and went for it, because they got a little old gauze thing you can wipe the dummy's mouth off. I see these people get up there, they wipe their lips off with gauze. But you think about this, you got these little balloons inside the chest capacity, and you blow these balloons up when you're doing that, and the little sensors make the light go on. Well, all that air coming up out of that balloon is whoever breathed in it before you, it's in there. So that wiping them lips off and everything, they should just put that out of their mind, because if you're going to do the CPR, chances are anybody will tell you, when you're having a heart attack like that, you're possibly going to expel food from out of your stomach, and um, it ain't a pretty picture. Dying ain't a pretty thing. It's you just got to put all that stuff out of your mind and do what you're trained to do, rather than let getting all squirmish about it. Well, we were required. It wasn't something anybody, none of us wanted to do, but it was required of us to have this, because when you're out in the field, you're basically alone out there. You're in a remote area where there's a missile, just you and a missile, and you're 100 miles from the nearest medical facility. By the time they contacted an ambulance and drove out 100 miles in a blizzard to get your ass, you're done dead. So every person on the site has to be certified to be able to do what it takes to keep the crew alive. The Office, I like that show, The Office, man. I watched every episode of that. There was pretty those people that put that show together. They knew what they was doing. I hate the bleeders. We had a young man right next to me. He was running a skill saw, and he was cutting a big thick plate of aluminum with a skill saw. And what he done is the guard on the back, he had pulled it up and wired it up. And while he was cutting it, the saw kicked back and cut him, well, down there where your business is, just down below that, in that big old part of his thigh. Oh, that's a horrible looking mess. I mean, that blade it don't cut through the flesh really pretty like a laser beam. Oh hell no, it gnaws its way through there. And the guy, of course, he was screaming and hollering, and uh, that's just something you just want to kind of blot out of your mind. But he's still alive. He didn't die that day, because there was people right there next to him that came out of the field. My whole organization was made up of military personnel, because we had preferential hiring in the military division of my company, and all of them had seen their share of blood, guts, and glory. Thank God they had those kind of people there. Oh, no. Oh, you saw his vertebrae. Oh. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that's right. I'm an organ donor. I don't have my wallet here next to me, but if there's going to be any parts left that's going to be worth using, well, they're welcome to them. What would I need them for? Yeah, I'm on my driver's license. It says organ donor. Uh, I just don't know what's going to be left. Yeah, I remember when they used to make fun of people that wore kidney belts, and maybe that's the reason I'm alive today. Is I wore safety equipment almost all the time. Because when I was a little boy, my daddy said, if you kill the head, the body will die. So it kind of made sense to me to put something on your head to keep it alive. I got to get rid of that ugly looking hair. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Hey, little bit, come here. Come here. My little Colton, he is awake over there. Yeah, you never want to feel ashamed about wearing safety equipment because if it protects you from pain and suffering, unnecessary so do it. Been thinking about getting a new camera, 360. I'm thinking about a 360 camera because they seem to be popular. I've had GoPros ever since GoPro 2, Hero 2 was my first, and I've had every model since then. And this is probably the worst of the lot right here. That one is probably the worst of the lot for me. It makes really good videos. However, it can't take Alabama's heat. Now, all this stuff you're seeing right here, that is where there's a microphone right there. See, look right there. See the little microphone? I always kept that covered up with a piece of foam, and that's all that is glue you see there. When I was just riding the microphone out in the front, I put a little windsock over the top of that. Let me see if I got one of them laying around here. I just glue it on there, and it works really good. I peeled that one off. So when I started doing motovlogging, where I was using the media mod, when I was using this thing here, um, when I was using the media mod, um, I had to take all the foam off where I covered up all the microphone ports on a camera. This thing right here, this 11, you get about 30 minutes when it's 95 degrees outside. If you get a 30-minute video at 5.3K, 5.7, whatever it is, at high resolution, it will really get hot. This is the hottest one I've ever had. That and the GoPro 8. The GoPro 8 got really hot really quick, and the 11 gets hot too. I want to get a camera that doesn't get as hot. But I've got an adapter. I use this and this. I don't have the other part. There's another part that holds the camera. That I have an attachment so that I can run the this camera here with this stick, and it really makes good videos. That's a Samsung Galaxy. I do have an attachment that holds that phone in place. And you've seen Angelique, she'll hold it back there where she's at, and she'll hand it up to me, and I'll grab a hold of the stick, and then I'll put it in front of me and looking back over my shoulder. We do it like the camera is just floating around. I'll do it all the way in around the front, and all the way around the side, and from the back, she'll hold it up above her head, behind her, and looking down over the top of both of us. So I make my Samsung phone over there. I'll make it into a 360 camera because I go all the way around. Yeah, I wish I see. I don't know what I've done with the attachment. It's laying over somewhere. Yeah. Oh, I know. I put the attachment on the tripod over there. I have sometimes I'll set the tripod up and put the cell phone in the on the tripod and watch myself come down the driveway, or I'll set it on the side of the road and go by at high speed, you know. So I always set them on a tripod, and so I use that attachment. The attachment is a clamping device, and it just goes right over the top and holds the camera. It's a pretty neat little deal. It's got jaws that clamps down on the camera. People that can clean a bike. I got a guy, he's about 4 miles from me. He's got a detail shop. And when I want my bike really clean, he's just 4 miles from here. It's about $100 to have your bike clean. But they go over all your plastics and stuff, about once a year, you should have, if you really like your bike and you want to keep rust and stuff off it. Well, what happened to me is I burned my shoes on the exhaust pipe. When I had the 2-into-1 exhaust on my other bike, that back cylinder came forward and curled under, and I always got my pants leg in that. It would burn my pants legs off. So I got where I was putting a rubber band around my pants leg. And yeah, I've got all my shoes. I'm not bullshitting. Look right here. Does that boy ride a Harley or what? Huh? Look right there. I know you go, hell, why would you ride a bike in a pair of damn loafers? And these are, all right, well, that's just me. And you can tell that I do a lot of riding. How can you tell that I do a lot of riding? Shifter. That's from shifting. See the difference? See the difference in these shoes? Let me get them in there. Let me get them in the proper hand. Gear shift, no. This one over here, gear shift. See the black. How many thousands of shifts you have to do to make that turn black? Well, you say, oh, yeah, but that's just because of that soft leather. Here's real leather right here. Look right here. How many shifts do you have to do to wear through leather? That's for shifting. I ride a lot. Oh, I got a pair of boots over here. I got a pair of $500 Harley boots. They're around here somewhere. I haven't had them on in 2 years. After I broke my leg, I can't get them on my right leg because let me see if I can do this. Yeah. That right there, that leather and the boot, that that hurts so bad against that scar. So I wear these low top shoes down below the scar, and that way I can still keep riding. Inside under that scar is on that's on both sides of your leg now. There are metal plates inside there, and when you put your leather boots on, it compresses them plates, and there's bolts in them plates. I hurt like hell. So if you want to keep riding, you got to find some way of being comfortable. I hope you don't ever break your leg. My big break is up here on oh, my knee. And I got a lot of bones broken. you can't ride for 69 years. 69 years of riding unless you look at them hands. Look at this. Broken bones in my hand. I don't know if you can see it. Broken hand. Broken hand. I hope I can, where you can see the scar. You can't see it, but broken arm right there. Broken jaw. Broken. Let me see which jaw is it. Right. No, right here. I can feel the divot. There's a hole. There's a bone. There's a missing place right here. You're gonna ride. You're gonna have some stuff broken. If you now you can go out there and putter around, and but I'm talking about riding. Seriously, you're gonna crash. And maybe I was a little bit more foolish than a lot of people. I ain't asking for no quarters. I brought a lot of stuff on myself, but I got a lot out of life. You can sit up in your office somewhere and dream about, oh, what it'd be like to wring something out. A guy had a fuel bike that was running on fuel. It weighed 219 pounds. It had the fuel tank was in the frame, the down tube was this fuel tank. It held about half a gallon, good enough for a run on fuel. Yeah, I wrung that one out. And it was one of those bonsai engines. You ran it till the engine blowed up. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Go fast is uh, I got toes that don't work well because when they put the plates in there, they severed some of the nerves, and I don't have the motion in my toes that I should. You don't realize how important your feet are until you can't use them. Hell, oh man, I got nail holes in the bottom of my feet. uh, we was racing in a place called Benton City, Washington, and it had steep banks. We was racing around the steep banks, and you get up really high up on the steep concrete banks now, concrete, and you'd go. It was like a long fishbowl, and you'd get up really high up on the wall. And we kept doing this over and over. And and the faster you go, more it sort of wants to push you out of the bowl. So I'm riding up there within 3 or 4 inches of the very top, and my chain broke, and it sent me out of the bowl. I hit a Winnebago in the parking lot. I hit it in the roof, and the front wheel went in, and it springboarded me off the roof. Yeah, that wasn't a good landing. Oh my God, you already made it to work, Moto. Well, good. We've seen your riding style. So, uh, oh, I'm just conveying some of the things that happened over the 69 years of riding. My very first Harley I ever rode was when I was 16 years old. And my very first Harley to crash is when I was 16 years old. I went down, man. Uh, we had a lot of good stories of things that we did, places we went. One time we took off to Padre Island from San Antonio, Texas. Myself and my brother and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law had a Ford pickup truck, and he was hauling all of our tents and all of our beer for the weekend of camping on Padre Island and Corpus Christi down, Padre Island. So we made it to Padre Island, but my brother-in-law didn't show up. When he got to Beeville, Texas, the police in Beeville, Texas, pulled him over because, see, we had them coolers filled full of beer in the back. And my brother-in-law went back there and started sampling some of the cold beer. By the time he got to Beeville, he was seeing multiple lanes of road, and he didn't know which one to take. So they decided to put him in a little lockup room, and let him cool off for the weekend. He stayed there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We was riding out on Sunday. We left, and we saw him coming, so we flagged him down. He had just got out of Beeville jail. Uh, he went with us to Mexico, And this is before he met my sister, but he went with us to Mexico. And we went to Boys Town. If you ever go to Padres Negras, Eagles Pass in America, you go across to Padres Negras and you go down. We went about 100 miles down into Mexico. And every border town, they have a thing called Boys Town. It's where you can go and let your hair down. And so we went to Boys Town like boys would do. We went to Boys Town. And somewhere during the night, my brother-in-law, which wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, he come up missing. So we searched every old dive they was. They was doing all these shows. You could go in these dives and they had live acts going on in Boys Town. And so we went there, one of them dives we knew he liked and we liked too. Couldn't find him. So we went to the police station in this little town. Indiana. Well, good seeing you, Sterling. So we go to the sheriff's department, the policey. So they said, you go over and there's a hole over here in the square, and you look in the hole, and if you see him, you will you come back and we will go bring him to us, And so we went down, and there he was. He was laying down in the bottom of the hole on the ground. So we told him, what he was wearing. So they went and dragged him out of there. That was in 1970. We had to pay $65 to get him out of the hole. that was in 1970. It was 2,400 pesos to the dollar. Yeah, 2,400 pesos per dollar. And it cost $65 to get him out of the hole. But it ended up having a good time. We did have a good time. Yeah, the drunk tank. The hole is literally, he's down there in the ground. It's just a holding tank, the drunk tank. And that's how you recognize if they're in there. You look down there and you see your relatives. You go, that's him right there. And then they go get them and you have to pay the fine. Oh, $1 is 18 peso. Well, it was 2,400 pesos at that time in 1970. That's what the exchange rate was then. We went down, my sister Joyce and her husband, we were in cruising vans. We went down to Padres Negras, just right there at Padres Negras, the Black Hills of Mexico. And it was 3,400 pesos in 1985. You had to have a sack full of pesos to buy anything. When I first went to Mexico, it was only 12 pesos to the dollar. That was in 1960. 12 pesos to the dollar in 1960. So you see it progressed. And then they devaluated the dollar, and you can see what Sterling said now. It's like 18 pesos to the dollar. I went to one time to a place in Iowa. It was the Apache Conveyor Company, where the name of the company was Apache Conveyor. And I got up there, and their whole conveyor manufacturing system was shut down, and they couldn't unload me. And I got there on a Friday, and I had to set from Friday to Monday at the Apache Conveyor Company before they could get me unloaded. But they paid us per hour when we was sitting in downtime. But I just hated it sitting still. I've had a long weekend. Every day is a challenge, Sterling Will, being 85 years of age. The young, tender expression is gone out of your face. You know, you have relatives that are suffering. You got friends that's dying. Yeah, I think people wear their feelings on their face. This being a Tuesday, we know it's Taco Tuesday. That'll always put a smile on my face. $250 a day for sitting. Well, that's at least, you know, better than it was in the old days. I used to, when I first started hauling, you know, your downtime was your time. But then they started paying us for our drops. One time I took a load out of Birmingham, and I had 11 stops. I mean, you have to tarp and untarp when you're running a flatbed. And so we got paid for every time we had to take the tarp off. And then I've hauled for companies like American Gypsum on a flatbed. I'd go down and get a load of sheetrock, and they would not let you tarp up a load of sheetrock. They tarped it themselves. So I love going there. It's right there in New Orleans. You right at the end of the big bridge. You pull off, you go down in there, and they bring all that equipment in by boat, and they make that sheetrock, and they load your truck there, and they tarp the load. I like that. You never did have to crawl up on the top or none of that stuff. I've hauled a lot of good loads of sheetrock. I went to a place over in Georgia and picked up a load of foam rubber. This foam rubber, I can't remember where it was at. It was down below Macon, somewhere around the Macon area. I picked up a load of foam rubber, and you put 14 straps or 18 straps or whatever on your foam rubber. And the more you pull it down, the side bulges out. So a little old cop pulled me over there in Georgia. He said, you're not able, you're obstructed view. And he said, I'm going to walk at the back of your load, and I want you to tell my buddy, he's going to be standing right here. You tell him how many fingers I got held up. Well, when he walked back there, down below your big mirror was a spotting mirror. You know, you've got them on your rig. There's a round spotting mirror. And he stuck out 2, and then he stuck out 4, and then put his thumb up. And I told him every one of them. And I told his buddy. And he said, I don't see how. He said, we couldn't see you. How could you see us? And I said, well, we drivers just learned how to see or whatever. Made some kind of remark. He let me go. I was only hauling the load from there in that place in Georgia to Mobile, Alabama, to an automobile manufacturing where they made parts. They needed that foam rubber for shipping. And so the name of the town was a name of a town in Georgia just 15 miles away. And I did not know this. And I told him I was going to Satsuma or something like that. And he said, well, go ahead, roll on. But I was going to Satsuma, Alabama, which is down at Mobile, you know, 200 miles away. So they didn't write me a ticket. He was really surprised how I was able to see. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I hauled a big old V12 Caterpillar engine and all the equipment that went with it in great big crates. But that V12 was sitting in a big steel. The V12 engine was had two great big, huge turbochargers sitting high up on the top of the engine, and it was in a steel crate. And what I done is I used a single come along, and I went through my chains and then got the single come along on it. So in my driving mirror, I could see the come along. And so when I was going from I-65 merging into I-24 to go up towards Fort Campbell, Kentucky on I-24, they had a lot of construction there. So the truck was rocking and rolling like this. And when I looked over in the right mirror, I saw the edge of the crate, the steel crate, right at the edge of my truck, right at the edge of the flatbed. I went, oh, hell. And so I got under an underpass and I pulled over. That one come along had came loose and allowed that whole frame to shift when the truck was rocking. So I used a come along and I inched it one pull at a time till I got that whole V12. It was a big old, it was a V12 Caterpillar engine, Caterpillar V12. It goes in a 11R, something like that. They use it for, it goes in a big 11, D11R. It was a V12 engine. A huge thing, industrial engine. I used to haul a lot of them to Key Machinery in Tarrant City, Alabama. Key Machinery. We used to go all over the country and haul these V12s in and V10s and inline sixes. We'd haul them in they'd rebuild them over there in Tarrant City at Key Machinery. Boy, I'm going to tell you, I was so happy. I learned a lesson, boy. You don't ever use a single one come along, no matter, even though it was great big chains and it was sitting on a beautiful platform. And no, buddy, I learned you got to put a lot of come alongs on it. You put a lot of binders, locking things down. I drove a reefer truck in Seattle. I drove, this truck was hauling pies from Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, that was a bakery in Seattle, to 18 Denny restaurants in the Puget Sound area, from Queen Anne Hill to the north on 5, all the way around to Bremerton. Many stops. I had to go to North Bend on I-90 to the east. Went out to the Denny's on North Bend, and then got back and went around the 405 and got back and went to SeaTac Airport. I had 5 Denny's in Seattle, from Queen Anne Hill down on the waterfront. 5 of them in the Seattle area, and I made my loop all the way around to Bremerton, hauling pies. But in the morning, when I'd pull into the bakery, I'd put in my order, and we could order pies. And at night, when we come in, we'd have fresh baked pies with our name on it waiting for us. And it was a reefer truck. And the tractor had a 48,000 pound load on the tractor. There was a 10-wheeler that was had a special, because of the reefer thing, and it was a food handling thing. We got a little bit higher weight. It allowed us extra weight on the tractor, and it had hydraulics to lower. When you pull your cart of pies out, it would lower you down to the ground. and that was a good. It had a this one had a Perkins diesel. Was it Perkins? It had a nice turbocharge. It was really a nice. It was had a Super 10 in it. I used to go to Sherry's restaurant. Sherry's is a series of Sherry's pies, and oh my God! Um, Yesterday on TV, I watched a guy pull up in a great big excavator, and he was tearing down the Sherry's in Kent, Washington, the very one that I have eaten at. I even showed Angelique the very seat I sat in, and yeah, it was a beautiful building. Well, I've eaten so many pies at Sherry's. They have some of the best homemade pies. Oh, you got to be kidding! It's a Mexican restaurant. Well, that's another good. I mean, it's a popular food. I'm crazy about Mexican food. I like all different kind of sauces. Well, you might have saw my little. I did a. I know you don't like AI music, but I did a little song about being in the bottle, and the lead picture. One of the lead pictures of me uh, pouring a drink with Don Julio's. Oh, good. 72-year-old 72-year-old tequila. Oh, you talking about good. That was some good stuff. One Julio. Let me tell you my little story, Sterling. I stopped up there in Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And so, there's three exits. I mean, I don't know how there may be more now, but when I was driving, there was three exits. Three, said Oshkosh, the next three exits. Well, I took one of the exits and I had my dinner. And and back in the days when you had logbooks, I took my logbook and I was filling out my logbook, and I needed to know the town, the area. I know the exit was the exit for Oshkosh, but every little exit has a name of the region you're in. So I'm in a Perkins restaurant and at this exit. So I asked a little old chewing gum girl there. She was chewing gum. I said, "What's the name of this place, ma'am?" I'm thinking, what's the name of this, like Burns Junction or Tifford Lane, or it's going to have some kind of little name. She went, "Duh, Perkins." She put right above her head was the name of the restaurant. Was called Perkins. She went, "Duh, Perkins." uh, yeah, the old paper logbook. Yeah, she Perkins, like I was too old, an old fool, wanting to know where in the hell am I at. I needed to write it in my logbook, where I took my dinner break, all on duty but not driving, and that guy said, "Oh, this is Browns Point or whatever the name of the area was." See, I wasn't at a big truck stop. I'd pulled over in this big area where I could get into Perkins there, and I'd have had all that information if I'd have been in a truck stop. But uh, she was so funny. I liked Iowa. Iowa was one of the favorite states I like to travel in. I don't know why. Hey, been tempted? Um, I was at a Perkins restaurant in Iowa, and when I got sat down there, I noticed I didn't have any silverware. Usually there's a little bag. It's got your knife and fork and stuff in it, and I didn't have one. And this great big guy, huge. He had to be like 6'8", big old Paul Bunyan guy, come strutting over, had a big beard, and he come over with some silverware and handed it to me. He said, "I just noticed you didn't have any." And I thought, well, how damn nice can you be for him to get up and come over and give me one that was on his table there extra, you know? And yeah, I met some really, really good human beings. On the road, it's easy to find assholes there ever were. But by finding that one person, it sticks in your mind for the rest of your life, man. I love it. I like Iowa. I've been all over that state. When you haul for O'Neill Steel out of Birmingham, O'Neill Steel used to be so popular. On my flatbed, I hauled steel from Birmingham all the way to Linwood, Washington. There's building the Seafirst Bank up in Linwood, Washington. And when I'd haul from Alabama, I always go stay on my sister Connie over at her place in Kent, Washington. I'd pull my rig up there and park it up. They had a cul-de-sac, and I'd sleep in my sleeper. I'd log out in Spokane, drive all the way to Linwood, come back to Spokane, start me a new logbook so I'd have my 70 hours. We're on a 70-hour cycle, and I'd start my 70 hours at Spokane, Washington. We'd come rolling into Birmingham, and they say, you got to be in Dallas, Texas in the morning at 7 o'clock. Well, that's about 12 hours over to Dallas, or 10, 12 hours, you know. And you go, oh, no. Then you'd have to haul off over there. Oh, my God. I love it. Darling and honey and sweetie. And women can make you feel so good about yourself sometimes. Uh, I've had them come and sit down and say, mind if I sit here with you for a little bit? I've got to get a weight off my feet. I go, no. uh, yeah, I believe in compensating the person that brings you that pleasure. Angelique and I, we both do that. We'll take money and we'll give it to the person that's waiting on us. We'll hand them the money instead of leaving it on the table or I hate putting it on the MasterCard, on the Visa, because when you do that, that company takes their share of that tip. The cook, the busboy, all the people along the line, and the waitress, the person that made your day, made you feel good about yourself, she gets $1.50, and the rest of it goes to the company. We pay right directly. Cash only, that's the way to do it, baby. Well, there's a little old lady up there in Coleman, used to be at Jack's Truck Stop in Coleman, right there at 304 exit. Jack's used to be popular. Now you got the Flying J, or whatever it's called down there in Dodge City at exit 299. But at 304 at Jack's there was a little lady. When I used to truck drive, I would stop there and have my breakfast before setting out on the big adventure. That or the Rojos at Dodge City. I've eaten a lot of breakfast at Rojos in Dodge City. So anyhow, I would I've always eaten there, and this little old lady, a little silver-haired lady, got a little bit of a hump in her back. I know she had been there for over 25 years, and it was coming up on Christmas. And when the lady came back over, I gave her $100 bill for her Christmas present, and it brought her to tears. You got to keep in mind, back in the day working at Jack, she was probably making $7.20 an hour in tips. $7.20. And ain't nothing more ungrateful than a bunch of asshole truck drivers, demanding and acting crazy. A lot of them, the inhumanity. Sometimes it can be just overbearing to see how people treat one another. especially at truck stops. Ain't nothing no filthier than a truck stop bathroom. Oh, God almighty. I was up on that Flying J at I-81, and it's my time to take a bath. Couldn't stand myself any longer. So I got my ticket for the shower, and they paged me. And I got all the way in there and realized I didn't have my flip flops. Oh, good God Almighty. That bottom of that shower was just pure snot. Ah, ah, maybe it was snot. It might not have been snot. Ah, ah, good God Almighty. I was the nastiest thing I've ever endured in my life. And I-81 Flying J in Pennsylvania, just as you go across the border on the left over there, Flying J, I-81. Ah. Well, they've done quite a bit to try it. I noticed Love tried to make a situation where things are a little bit cleaner, but why would anybody do the things they do in a bathroom, public bathroom? Oh yeah, but that's that's nature, I guess. We went to Sylmar, California. Me and this guy, we was co-driving. You know, he was my co-driver, and I'm the senior. But he wanted to get back to Alabama. So when we got to Sylmar, I said, Sylmar's up where 5 and 405 comes together. There's a factory up there that makes lithium batteries. And we were hauling material to build lithium batteries up there. And we had a long-term contract, so the team, we was running 2 loads a week out to Sylmar from Birmingham. And this is a place I always bathe because you find places like, for instance, you don't mind eating at Rip Griffin's over there where I-35 and 10 comes together down in that area. Rip off Griffin's. There's places you like to stop at and don't like to stop at. But Sylmar was my place to take a bath, and that boy said, "No, we're going back to Birmingham. I've got to get my truck's going to be ready, and I'm going to be heading out, and I want to get back and get my load started." I go, "I hate to tell you, buddy, but this is our stop break. We're going to take a breather here." Well, he called the home company and everything, and said, "I need to get back. I got to get," went on and on. So we had an abbreviated stop, but I got my shower, and then we left. And you got to imagine it was like doom and gloom all the way back to Alabama, because I was planning on staying over and then leaving out. But my plans got altered because of his plans of getting started out on his own route. He didn't like team running. I didn't like it either. I spent 3 years team running with a lady nurse, retired from the U.S. Army as a nurse, and she went and got her GI Bill and went to driving school. And I got her the very first. I was the first assigned driver with her, and we had 3 really good years. Miss Jenny, she was a delightful human being, a very sociable, educated woman that could talk about any subject. She loved the ham radio I had down there on the console, I had a huge ham radio, and she liked to listen to all the different ham traffic and stuff, and she'd give me reports when my 5 hours was up in the sleeper. I'd come out. She'd give me an up to date what was happening on the different nets that I belonged to. CRing, oh, yeah, there's a lot of good companies that you like to ride with. Do you like to run with? You don't mind running with. Me and a guy, his name was Bill Bailey. Me and Bill Bailey, we we did team running out to Waterflow, New Mexico. Not team, we went on the same. We had our own separate trucks, but we was running in a convoy. Me and him, we used to run loads in a convoy, 2 trucks at a time, out to Waterflow, New Mexico. And so it was a time for us to let our books catch up. And we were down there in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So we pulled in and we got us a place, the Super 8 motel at Vicksburg, or I think it's Super 8 right there close by the Mississippi River. Anyway, we went in and had a good dinner in Vicksburg. And then we got to be up at, we have to be up somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning. Our time, we could start our book fresh at 5 or whatever. So the phone rings. That was Bill. And he said, "Are you ready to go?" And I go, "I will be as soon as I get a shower." You know, I was like yelling at him because I'd overslept. So I went in and quickly got a shower. Well, I came out, got my stuff, went down, started my logbook. I'm sitting there, engine running, building up air, doing all that stuff. And I'd already did a walk around. I'm doing all this in the book. And here come Bill out. He gets in. And so now you're at the point where you're going to start your logbook, and you look over there and you check the time, and it's 1:30 in the morning. I go, "Oh my God." I called him. I said, "What time do you have?" I thought my clock had been, I was driving a Freightliner. I had that clock over there. I could see. I think I was in Kenworth. I was in the Kenworth. And I said, what time you got, man?" He said, should be. I said, "Look around. It's not even daylight. 5:30, we should be seeing daylight." I got to looking around. It's pitch black. I said, "My clock's showing 1:30 in the morning." He said, "Something wrong, man, saying the same thing." I said, "Where did you think it's 5:30? He said, "That's what it said on the clock in the motel." He'd set the time and he said it wrong or whatever, and it woke us up at 1:30. Oh, here we are. Already both of us got our logbooks ready to go. And we got to, as soon as you go out there just a few more miles, there's the scale house. Oh my God. We rolled up and they waved us on through. The light was green. I went, "Oh my God. If it had stopped us, we'd have been in deep doo-doo, Well, we made it into Birmingham 2 hours early. Hey, Robert. Good to see you over here, buddy. You know me, I'm just sitting here just rattling along about things in the old days, stuff that we did and things we enjoyed doing back in the day. Uh, I started off when I came home um, from the service. When I got officially, I was now set loose and I can go anywhere I want to. I still have to do 2 years of reserve, I think it was. maybe 2 years, but I'm pretty well free to go anywhere I want to. Before I went, when I used to drive for a company in Alabama called Alabama Tank Line, and the guy I drove for, he had the ICC license to haul jet fuel and stuff, and I was just a driver for him. And so I really enjoyed doing that. And when I was in the military, we drove a lot of equipment. I was in engineering supply. Enjoyed that stuff. So when I went to the West Coast, immediately the only thing on my mind was to drive a truck. And we drove we hauled cottonseed in the San Joaquin Valley. You had to load the cotton. You had this great big old trailer that had chicken wire all the way around the between the staves. You had to have this thing and load cotton in, and you had to walk and stump it down and pack as much cotton as you could load on that truck. And the same way, when you got where you was going, you hauled it from Fireball, California, Mendota, and that area, to Manteca up by Sacramento. And you got up there and you had a big suction device, and you had to get in a second. Now, cottonseed are hot. When it comes out of the gin, cottonseed are smothering hot. Oh, they're hot. And you have to get back there and take that big suction device and unload all the cotton seeds off. When we got up to Washington, we started hauling lumber. We used to have, and I believe in Washington, we could do 110 or 112,000 pounds. We had our trailers had water assisted brakes. You had these 255-gallon drums that sprayed your drums when they reached 170 degrees or whatever, a certain temperature. Water would spray on the drums on the outside to cool the drums down. They're big old finned drums. So we had water cooled drums, because you'd come back from the top of the hill up there. You'd be over 6,000 feet, and you have to wind your way down into Boise, Idaho, Lewiston, Idaho. When you come down to Lewiston, Idaho, you crossed over the border at Lewiston into Washington, Clarkson, Washington, Lewiston, Idaho. Clarkson on one side of the river, Lewiston on the other. I've crossed the grapevine a lot of times too. In the early years, we did a lot of crossing of the grapevine. We're just reflecting upon some of the things of the old days, some of the things that we encounter. Most human beings can do on any situation. It's up to an individual to make that situation palatable. You can get sucked into drama that you should stay out of. Some people will get themselves involved in stuff like Rambo radio on the trucking. People get in their little conflicts on the radio, and sometimes you feel like you got to get up, be a part of it, and get all up into it. Next thing you know, you're caught up in the drama. I just kind of just leave that. I just ease on by that stuff. Mountain home. Well, you mountain house, mountain home. I've been to mountain home, Idaho. That's the home of Galvin Field. Galvin Field is in Mountain Home, Idaho. That is where the home of the A-10 Warthog is, in Galvin Field. A-10 Warthog is a beautiful old war machine. Its time is not up yet. I got to be a part of two great war machines The A-10 Warthog, I have a connection with that due to the fact that I've been to Mountain Home, Idaho. And the other is the A-37 Dragonfly. If you want to see a great war machine, I got a picture of it right there on the wall. I got an A-37 Dragonfly right there. The A-37 Dragonfly was built for the Vietnam War, and it was the only aircraft at the time could lift its weight and armament. It had two little screaming engines, inboard engines, into the fuselage, two little screamers, and they lifted a heavy load, great ground support. Pilot and co-pilot sat side by side. See, they had a T-37. A-37 was the assault. Oh, time for lunch for, what do we have in Motabon for lunch? I had one more connection to an aircraft that became very famous in the world, and it was called the Black Hawk. Nah, I wouldn't call it Black Hawk. What the hell was that damn thing called? Oh, it was called the A-12 when I knew it. When the first time I saw it, it was designated the A-12. Let's see. Somebody's about to get it. Somebody knew it. See, the A-12 is what it was designated for us because it was classified. I said the Black Hawk. It's the Blackbird, and SR-71 is correct. But I was over there at Dobbins Air Force Base in Marietta, Georgia. And so I was in this building, and I heard this strange engine running. It had a different metallic twang to it. And so I peeked out the window, and I see this space-looking craft. It's black, and it's odd. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before. But in our business, you could go to prison for asking questions, so you had to make sure you had to be careful what kind of questions you might ask. But when I was looking out the window at it, a guy came over and he said, "Do you know what that is right there?" And I said, "No." See, yeah, but it was built at Lockheed there at Dobbins Air Force Base. See, Lockheed is sitting right at Dobbins Air Force Base. And in fact, Howard Hughes has a Lockheed jet sitting down there on the runway. Been sitting there for years. So the guy says to me, "That's the Blackbird, the A-12. I said, "What the hell is it?" He said, "Just watch it." And then I watched it. It rolled out. And it was gone. I go, "What?" He said, "He's going to Cuba right now." I go, "What is it?" And he said, "That's our newest spy plane. It's called the A-12. And I go, and he said, "Let me show you something else." And he took me over there. We looked through a side window, and there was one of them aluminum trailers in there, one of them high dollar trailers. And they had this guy in a spacesuit, and there's two men under his arms, and they was walking him and getting him ready to go on a flight. And he had a spacesuit on. And they was holding him under his arms, and he's really heavy, and they was walking him over there. And I said, "Oh my God, what is it?" He said, "They're going at high altitude, so they have to have this environmental suit on." You know, this was in 1968, and they'd already been flying in service at that time 2 or 3 years. Nobody knew anything about it. And I said, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like it." And yeah, it was September of 1968. And that was my first contact with the SR-71, the Blackbird. Rob, that's to me, that's one of my favorite airplanes. My very favorite airplane from my childhood was the B-36 Peacemaker. The B-36, they used to have the saying, 6 a turning and 4 a burning. 6 propellers turning and 4 jet engines burning. That was the later variant of the B-36. And I had a radio out of a B-29 that was a Rockwell Collins. It was a Collins International, I think it was, but it was a 24-volt radio. My uncle was modifying the B-29s, and I got an old radio, and we had it hooked up with an antenna. And I used to listen to Strategic Air Command on 2 megahertz, and them guys at high altitude talking. It was so, I enjoyed that so much. They got one. If you'll notice, on the SR-71, when it takes off, back in the back side of the fuselage, there's a bell-shaped cone back there at the back, and sometimes you'll see white-looking smoke coming out of it. It's not smoke; it's vapor. And so, a friend of mine that joined our team, he was a pilot on the SR-71, and we went down to the museum there on East Wallingford Way in Seattle, down there where they make the Peterbilt trucks, Freightliner, or the Kenworth trucks. We went down. There's a factory there right across from the Kenworth. Is where I was working. It was called the what the hell do they call that facility there? That's where we made our first SST. It's called the Experimental Center. Yeah, the Experimental Center. He was a part of that team. Well, they built a museum right across from the DC, the Experimental Center, Developmental Center, not experimental, Developmental Center. They built a museum, Boeing did, and hanging up in the museum is a SR-71. But this guy that worked on our team, he told us what that little cone was for. These engines have these, like, a turbocharged engine on a car has to have a wastegate. You got this pressurized fuel, and what is not burned in the afterburner on takeoff, it has to be, the pressure has to be bled off or whatever. And that's what that little cone shaped back thing is at the very back of the fuselage. Is it could get the vapor. So they actually use a nitrogen infused fuel for high altitude running, and sometimes they'll vent off the system with that nitrogen, and you'll see it sometime a trail of white looking vapor coming out of that. I was always curious what that was for. Yeah, the SR-71 titanium, it leaks really bad till it gets the heat into it, and it has a normal amount of leak to it. It's not leaking because they can't stop it. It just has to be that way. The body has to get hot enough to seal, and it does a real good job of it. You know, when the thing landed there at Dobbins, when he'd come back and land, they had 2 pickup trucks. They were Dodge trucks. And he had these 2 guys. When the SR-71 would be rolling down after he got it, they would roll under him, and they would put this leading edge asbestos or material to keep the temperature high, so that temperature would stay high till they could evacuate the fuel out of the tanks and stuff. Because if they let it just cool down, it would just pour out all over the tarmac. They didn't want that, so they would cover up the craft where the area where the heat was at, to hold the heat till they could empty the tanks without being washed out. They had the thing figured out. And then the last plane I will discuss will be the YC-14. I got a picture of it sitting right there. YC-14. We made 3 of them. It's got a new concept, upper surface blow-in. Upper surface blow-in is where the wing is mounted above, the engine is mounted above the wing, and the exhaust coming off the wing, off the trailing edge, causes lift. So you can take the YC-14 is about the size of a C-130, and you could take off in 1,300 feet loaded, 1,300 feet, a quarter mile loaded with this upper surface blow-in. And we gave that technology, our president did, to get 7 Americans freed from Russia. The KGB had them imprisoned. So they got the technology. They built 700 of those. Look up the YC-14 and then look at the Russian version of it. They built 700. It's still in service today. But see, it couldn't meet our noise abatement laws that we had. It's very loud. We built another plane sitting right there called the unducted fan. Like on the 727, where the engines are located back on the tail, we put 2 unducted. We had the center jet engine, and then the 2 side engines had propellers on them that was unducted. Yeah, Antonov got the contract. We got 7 prisoners freed, and they got all of the design, everything to the very least. Look at the horizontal stabilizer, everything. Look at Boeing's version versus the Antonov version. Carbon copy. There's a little change in the fuselage, not very much in the cockpit area, but I was proud to be on that team. We tested it. We took it to Edwards Air Force Base, and still there's one sitting at Edwards right now today. The DC-3, what a history. I got one. I'm looking at a DC-3 sitting right there. DC-3 had some of the best damn flying history. You know, during the C-47 was similar to the DC-3 when they was aiding China back during World War II. They had to fly goods into China. The Japanese pretty well had China beat to its knees, and we flew those planes 24 hours a day. Yeah, I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base. We lived in Muroc. Muroc is a nice little place, little old small desert community. We lived in Boron the longest, but Muroc was actually on Edwards' facility. Bowen has a big complex at Muroc. Yeah, C-47 was the one it saw. They had a name for them, and it was a wonderful, wonderful aircraft that got the job done. I was just out there. You remember, I was just there in December of 2024. Yeah, I was just out there. There used to be a Four Corners Cafe located at 395 just east of Boron. My mama worked there. So I went there in 2017, and I went and had lunch there at the very restaurant that my mother worked at back in the 50s. She cooked for the Borax miners she cooked butter beans and taters and stuff that they love to eat. And now I try. They got a bypass, overpass. It's so changed. I told Angelique I wanted her to go to the restaurant, but it didn't happen because, yep, times have changed. Yeah, my brother is buried there, and it was at the time a military cemetery at Barstow, California. My brother was killed in uniform serving in the U.S. Army, and he's buried in an unmarked grave, Mountain View Cemetery in Barstow, California. I stop every time as we go through. The last time was the saddest. I'll never be back again. Can you imagine our country would allow my brother to lay 60 years in an unmarked grave? I get so upset. I wrote Senator, that little piece of shit from Alabama, that little fucking little prick called Jeff Sessions, that piece of shit, that garbage human being. I wrote him a letter. He was head of the Veterans Affairs. I said, I've been a loyal American all my life. I support America. I have been, my whole family is American to the bone. We've lost more people in our family to the military. I've got, out of my 5 kids, 3 of them has full retirement. I said, I'm begging you, the head of the Veterans Affairs, to make a wrong, take a wrong and correct it. Jeff Sessions, you have the opportunity to put a plaque on my brother's grave. And he wrote me back. He said, it's not my problem. You have to get a hold of Barbara Boxer in California. She's the senator in California. I said, you low-life piece of mother. I go, he's an American soldier. You shouldn't be dictated to which state. He was an American soldier, died in uniform, and you're the head of the Veterans Affairs. And Barbara Boxer has nothing to do with his death, and you're the senator from Alabama. He was born in Alabama. You have an obligation to protect a brother. And low life and piece of shit, that garbage he is. Have anybody ever heard? Does anybody know what happened to that sorry piece of low life and shit called Jeff Sessions? Does anybody know? You don't hear anything about that low lifer. That piece of low lifer is laying on a rock somewhere. That sorry piece of trash, that garbage human being. Oh, here we are, back at that crossroads again of anger. Sorry. It shouldn't have been about Barbara Boxer or any other senator. The position he had at the time was the head of the Veterans Affairs. He was the highest senator, and his obligation was to serve the American veterans. I'm an American veteran. And I appealed to him to put a $49 plaque on my brother's name. And he didn't. That sorry piece of trash come back to Alabama with his millions of dollars and never been heard of since. That sorry piece of trash. There's some sorry pieces of lowlife and trash in my government. I ain't kidding. But my brother lived for 18 years. Sorry piece of trash. So I went out, my brother and I, to go see my brother Gene. My brother lives in Arkansas, Moralton, Arkansas. We went out there, We go to the lady in the office over there at the cemetery. We say, we want to see our brother. She said, well, he's buried right here. She said, you go down here and you go here and you go, that's where he's buried. So I go down there and there ain't nothing there but grass. So I go back and say, I'm sorry, ma'am, I must have missed your location. I didn't find him. She said, oh, I have to go out with you. I said, oh, okay. Because I'm thinking she knows she's talking to two people from Alabama and we're dumb as a damn day old chicken. There ain't no way we could follow instruction. So she has to go with us to show us where my brother's buried. She's got a little thing. She pulls it out like a little telescoping thing, and it's got a little round ring on the end of it. And she had plugged it into a battery pack on her side, and she went beep 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 beep. She said he's buried right there. I go, what do you mean? He's buried right there. I go, where's this plaque at? She said, there's 8 out of 10,000 laying here that was killed in various forms of serving the country. 10,000 laying here. There's 8 of them that don't have a plaque, and he's one of them. He died in uniform, on duty. He didn't die in a bar. He didn't have a jealous lover cut his throat or killed in truck wreck or something like that. He died while in uniform on the job. Good to riddance to Jeff Sessions. Anyhow, I don't think there'll be enough time for me to ever correct a wrong. I've tried. What I've done is I got a hold of the newspaper in Boron, California, and I wrote a long article. I'm good at writing. And I wrote a long article to them, and a lady took up my cause, and she started investigating why there's 8 people laying in that cemetery without a plaque. Made a really good story for their newspaper. I appealed to the newspaper in Jasper, Alabama, and they wrote a beautiful story. I appealed to the Birmingham News, and they wrote a beautiful story. So people began to get involved in it. We had a senator from Illinois contact me. That is wrong, I tell you. If I'm elected president, I will put a plaque on every one of them. You know, he gave me the standard politician stuff. A lot of good stories. So the lady, she runs these stories, and she sends me clippings of all the stories when she printed the article in her newspaper in Barstow, California. What happened, Camp Irvin become Fort Irvin. It became America's largest A-1 Abrams tank training center in the world. That's at Fort Irwin. Well, here's what happened. Barstow is a military town. You got the Marine Corps there. You got the Army, the largest training Abrams tank training facility in the world. So the Army leaned on the newspaper and said, listen, drop the story. Your livelihood depends upon us allowing the troops to come into Barstow. If we give a standing order, they're not to enter into the city of Barstow. Your little goddamn little frig ass in town will just dry up. So you back off, sister. She wrote me the letter and let me know that would be the last article written about my brother. Because that friggin' Jeff Sessions already notified the Army that somebody whining and complaining about some graves not being respected. Do something about it. And their answer to it was, tell the city of Barstow we'll shut you down if you don't shut up. And she shut up. She was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper in Barstow. They don't even have a newspaper hardly anymore because everybody gets their news from the internet. You wear a watch, you got the news. You pick up your cell phone, you got the news. Nobody buys a newspaper hardly anymore. Anyhow, don't want to ruin your week and get off on a bad foot there. It's just a wrong that has not been corrected yet. Got a lot of good people trying to get involved in it, but they opted not to go too far. Oh, look in, let me see, the year of 2009. 2009. Go back in that period of time. Oh, don't tell me she sent me all the articles, so I never actually ever saw the newspaper itself, but she sent me the articles. Um, and also sent me the article where the military out there, the head commander out there at Fort Irwin has given the town a fair warning. Yeah, at the time that was a military graveyard. That's the reason he's buried there. Um, and we went through all those different. See, at the time, Jeff Sessions was the head of the Veterans Affair. His office handled all the stuff. It's the only reason I got involved. Another thing, I thought I'd appeal to his better conscience because of me being an Alabama boy and my brother born in Alabama. Um, the only reason he referred to Barbara Boxer was because California is where the cemetery is located, but his job was the head of all the Veterans Affairs. I went to the top dog. I bypassed Barbara Boxer for the top dog. It's a sad thing to have soldiers that serve the country without a plaque. Well, as long as I'm alive and breathing, I'll mention it occasionally. We're not going to be beating people up over the subject. But just keep in mind, one of these days after I'm gone, y'all say, "You remember that old guy? That old guy, he went by Big Mac, Little Mac, Mac Attack. Oh, Old Mac. You know that guy." Yeah, I remember him. He was back in the was that 20, 25, somewhere like that. Yeah, somewhere like that. He used to whine a lot about his brother being dead and everything. He used to drive us crazy talking about that shit all the time. But we're going to pick up that cause. We're gonna pick up and run with it. Like in the old days, you could always count on somebody picking up the cause. The problem being is today there are so many causes. It's hard to single out a cause that you can get behind because you want a cause that's going to give you some limelight and show your ability to work within this disaster or whatever. A little old thing like a dead soldier, we don't know the whole story. We only hear what Old Mack had to say. Let me tell you the whole story. He was killed in Fort Story, Virginia, in an amphibious duck. You remember that period of time when the Marine Corps marched over at Camp Lejeune or somewhere over there, marched the boys out in the swamp and drowned 3 or 4 of their soldiers, drowned them, sent them in with packs and drowned 3 or 4 soldiers. It happened at that time. The nation was still licking its wounds over them Marines being killed up there in training. When my brother was killed at Fort Story in training, he was tested. They sent him a new piece of equipment from Aberdeen, Maryland, the proving ground, and they was going to test it at Fort Story, Virginia. And that's where the accident took place. To me, it was murder. It wasn't an accident. The first one went out, the wave rolled it over, and everybody swam out. The second one went out, and it rolled over, and everybody got out. The third one went out, and the wave rolled over the top of the amphibious duck. The duck went nose first down in the ground, 50 feet of water. And my brother was a driver, and he was down inside, and he laid down there for 3 days before they could get to him in his uniform. But he wasn't a hero or nothing. He was just a soldier. He was my hero. He was my brother. Well, I think I pretty well have run my course today. Oh, Nona. Hey, Nona. I was watching you. I watch you every day. Like I told you the other day, Nona Grace, your chickens are that oasis out of the storm. When the life's drama is more than you can handle, just go over and listen to Nona Grace's little chickens, her little hens clucking, and her talking to her little biddies, the mama hen, just talking to the biddies. Little biddies are chirp, chirp, chirping, and the mama's clucking. Oh my God, what a so soothing moment to hear the sound of the chickens. No, it's a healing thing. I'm gonna tell you. Uh, for those that's looking for an oasis, a place to get out of the storm, Nona Grace is a good place to stop. You ain't gonna hear bitter words at Nona Grace's. You're gonna hear kindness and love. We forget about that. We get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything going on around us, and we forget to be kind to one another. Yeah, there's some bright spots on the internet, and you're one of them. Like yesterday with my friend Ad up in Valdor, him and I spent many years together. We were on the International Association of Airline Hams. We was there for 20 years on 20 meters. I think we was on 14280, I believe it was. I believe that was the frequency, 14280. For many years, Captain Andy. Captain Andy is a good human being. Him and I are the same age. Captain Andy used to fly fighter planes off aircraft carrier. He was a Navy uh, jockey, flew fighter planes, and then he flew for about 40 years commercial airlines. And Captain Andy, Victor Alpha 2, Alpha Delta Delta, Ad and Valdor, and a whole list of people that was a part of that world. Used to come over there, and it was all a good life, good living. If you ever saw suffering such as combat, pain, and misery, you're always looking for a place to rest. And that's what 14280 was, the place to come and rest. Take your shoes off. Like old Mac, he's sitting here barefooted now. So I did a song for Ed and his wife, Margaret. Marguerite, Ed is a garlic growing person that lives in Baldor. He has a huge aviation history like me. All these airplanes hanging on the wall and all the stuff that I have collected up over the years. His children were pilots and flight attendants. And they all have a great background in aviation. I'm sorry. Old people get in a doom and gloom sort of a thing, and I know it's hard to get out of that. I'm sorry, Sterling. I will try to lighten the mood up a little bit. I will try to lighten the mood up. Well, I think what happened is you would think at the age of 85, you grow hardened to the life and death thing, seeing friends go away, seeing wives. I have mentioned about being married 5 times. In my 85 years, 4 of the wives have left. I loved every one of them. So you're always involved in life and death when you get to my age. You wake up in the morning, thankfully you're not gone. I enjoy being here because when I'm here, I'm with you and I can feel your love. That's a big thing. So it's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom. We will prevail to move ourselves into a much brighter, cheerful subject. Reminiscing. I do a lot of reminiscing. Yeah. I just don't live in the past. I love the future. Otherwise, that's the reason I'm doing the AI thing. It's the future. Flying the drone. We were one of the early ones to fly a drone. I met a black guy in, he's a ham radio operator down in South Alabama. And this black guy, him and I was on the Nimitz together. We were 20 years apart. I was there 20 years before him. And I got to travel on the Nimitz first class, man. I got to go to every compartment of the Nimitz. And he was only restricted to whatever his MOS was. So we talked about that a lot. Well, here I'm flying a drone. I'm thinking I'm doing real good. And I meet him in South Alabama. Not only is he flying a drone, but he built his own drone. Every electronic component. He went to Radio Shack and got this and got that. And he got his Popular Science out and he put it all together. And he flew and demonstrated us the drone. Well, I hadn't got involved in it yet. When I saw him flying this drone, I said, I've got to do that. But he built his. And he's a guy my age. He's not getting around good now. Not as good as he used to. He gets around kind of like me. He's a big old black guy. He's over 6 foot. bigger you are, the harder it is to get around when you get old. Your old knees get stiff and everything. I did two. I did two sea voyages on the Nimitz. I did two, and they offered me the opportunity. The company did. This company I'm retired from is to go to Subic Bay and join the Nimitz. But here's what happened: the Nimitz got stuck at Subic Bay, so they had to call the trip off. I was going to go to Subic Bay and join them, and we were going from there back to Hawaii, back to Pearl, and from Pearl to Southern California, and then from Southern California, San Diego, up to Bremerton. That was going to be the trip. Well, the damn Nimitz got stuck. You ain't going to believe how they got themselves unstuck. The Nimitz has these big chains. These chains, each link weighs over 350 pounds. Each link. One link, 350 pounds. They took a boat and towed the chain out as far as the chain would roll out, both chains, tugboat, and they dropped the chains. When the chain dropped down now, when the chain dropped down out there, it dragged the Nimitz. The weight of the chain is so massive that, remember, the Nimitz weighs 97,000 tons, 1,053 feet in length. A big boat. It weighs over 97,000 tons. And so they used the chain to drag, the weight of the chain to help to drag the boat out. It was more complicated than that. I'm just sort of simplifying it. But when we got aboard the Nimitz, we went down in the chain department and they showed the broken links of the chain. How many times they broke the chain to get themselves loose. And it was quite an operation. We did a thing go fast on the Nimitz. We were cruising at classified speed, and we had put up I think 14 or 15 aircraft, and they did a sortie. They're out there doing whatever they had to do. Now we got to recover these 15 or 16 aircraft at sea. So we're at speed going, I'll just say we were going at the time west. But we've got to turn into the wind to make the recovery. He lays us, all the equipment on the surface of the deck had to be, there's pad eyes on the deck. Everything had to be anchored to the deck. And he did this list over. And it was such a sharp list over that it pulled the propeller. There's twin screws, and it went boom, 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 boom. Great big old blades, 28-foot size blades was slapping the water. That thing did it went from west to east under 2 minutes. And as soon as we got ourselves squared away into the wind and got our speed back up, here come the aircraft landing into the wind. You know, they kind of come in from the back and land into that wind. And oh my God, what an operation. I was up in the 09 deck. Now, if anybody ever been on the Nimitz, on the 09 deck, you know, up there where the radome, and all them sweeping devices, I'm down below it in what's called the degaussing area. If you've ever been on a big ship, they have a thing called the degaussing. It's so radiation doesn't affect the sailors and whatever, or the electronic equipment in the aircraft. They have a degaussing network there, and I was below the degaussing. And Oh my God, that old ship just laid over there, and then next thing you know, we got all these airplanes coming in. Yeah, turn and here's what they did. See, every time you're launching and recovering, you have to have helicopters in the air, and they took pictures of us on the aircraft carrier, and I could actually see me in the O9. It's what's called the crow's nest. The O9 has got a place, got a big telescope, and your semaphores are the signaling devices with lights is up there. They got these shutters, they close on the light. They're up there so they can communicate with this light device, and it works for about 25 miles out. Um, yeah, I was up there running a camera. I had me a camera. I caught it all in video. It's all on YouTube. You can see my voyages on the Nimitz on the go to YouTube. Right down in the bowels of YouTube, there's videos of me on the Nimitz, me out there on the flight deck, me up in the crow's nest, me firing a Maul Deuce, twin 50s. Old Mac got some stories, I tell you. Oh, the Nimitz CVN 68. That's the designation. I've been down to the reactor. I've been down there where the propeller shafts are. What happens? You go down way down inside there. There's different compartments on the ship, and you go down there, and how they measure the speed is how many revolutions the prop shaft is making. And when they call from up above, there's a procedure. It's called going coal iron. Let's say the top is destroyed by a bomb, but they can still run the ship from below. And you got a crew down below, down here where the propeller shafts are. And you got these big rudders. These rudders are 65 feet, big 65-foot tall rudders in the back. That steers the Nimitz. These big old flat rudders. Now you got two crews down at the bottom. You got these hand screws. You got 6 men on both sides. And you get a hold of your hand screw and you turn the hand screw, and that turns the rudders so they can actually do a 360-degree turn. And then you measure the speed forward by how many rotations the shaft is making. It's pretty interesting. You would think, how in the hell could you drive a 97,000-pound ship? How could you steer it by hand? Well, if you study about aircraft, there was a ship called the USS Ingersoll that solved about an 80-year history or 50-year history. Satellites have been able to track surface ships by the plankton in the water. And here's what happens. As you move a large body through the water, a deep draft and stuff, it stirs the plankton up. And the plankton, when they rotate in the air, they begin to glow, become phosphorus-like. And from a satellite 150 miles up, they can see your trail. You leave a trail that can be seen from space. So they said, the Soviets are tracking us from the plankton that's been energized by us stirring the water up with the aeration of the propellers and stuff. How are we going to resolve that? Well, we sent a team. A team got together. I'm going to tell you why we sent our team out. We developed a ship called the PHM, 200-foot long ship. PHM is called Pursuit Hydrofoil Missile, PHM. Hydrofoil, it rides up on a 15-foot ski. It rides up on this flying wing, and they fly through the water. And here's what happens when you're doing classified above 50 knots. It puts a long trail of energized phosphorus in the water, and we had to overcome that. And what we did is that wing is made of stainless steel. Now, stainless steel is non-magnetic, and the problem is when you move this non-magnetic material through the water, salt water, it made electricity and it energized the plankton. So what did we do? Our engineers at Boeing developed this material called 514, 514 stainless, not 304, but 514. It's a magnetic stainless. You take a magnet, it will stick to it. You go, what? No, yes. So here's what happened. You made this magnetic stainless, and as you pushed it through, if you look at right here, this is called a stator. This stator, everybody that's ever owned a motorcycle knows that goes inside. This is a stator. So you got a magnet, and he's got these coils right here. So as these coils go past the magnet, see right here, it goes past the magnet, it produces electricity. So if you take it 514 and slide it through salt water, chemical reaction would it would cause it would degauss. In other words, electronically, we was able to figure out how to use that to turn the light off on the plankton, stop the plankton from glowing with phosphorus glow. So they sent a crew over there to the USS Ingersoll, which is a destroyer, 540-foot destroyer, and this is what's called the Aegis class, Alatola class, if you will. The Shah of Iran had this built in Pascagoula, Mississippi. And the problem being is that they travel they're gas turbine ships, and they travel really fast in the water. So how do they combat the plankton problem in the water? They took a board of dissimilar alloys, and they drilled holes in it of various sizes. And as the water flowed through the boards, they produced electricity. And this they made a degaussing device at the water line. So when they were at speed, it didn't light up the plankton. Simple. You can't beat science. There are so many things that occurs at speed in water. In the aircraft industry back during World War II, Elmo's fire, the propellers would be turning out there, and when you had the right atmospheric condition, balls of fire would come off the propellers and roll across the cockpit right in front of the pilots, big balls of fire. Plain view. I don't know if that terminology is ever used. There's a lot of things we use had military jargon associated with it. I don't know what the civilian version of the same words would be. I was just a simple guy. I happened to be at a location and got to see some things that I was really proud I was able to see, and I was able to understand some of them. But it wasn't left up to me to understand. I just simply took it upon myself to learn a little bit about what was going on. In our days, it wasn't good to ask questions. There was just things you should not ask questions about. Same Elmo's fire is a real thing. We have seen it occur. I've seen it with my own eyes, so I do know it's not a fictitious thing. It's real, and but atmospheric conditions have to be right. Well, look at the aurora borealis. I mean, when you look at that, you say, and you tell me there's not a God? Oh my God. You see the air moving in color. It's the movement. You can see it just shivering and every color that you could ever imagine. If you ever looked at light through a prism and see the color spectrum and then see that just glowing yellows moving right into oranges, and you go, oh my God, you know. But there's actually a scientific reason for that. There's nothing magical about it, but it causes one to question what you see. You got to have an answer. To me, I could never leave anything alone. I always had to have an answer of why. What is that all about? I see my little woman.
I'm going to go cut up the rest of that.
You're going to do the thing?
Yeah.
What I want you to do, listen to this. Take me some of those baked beans and put over the top of mine, you know, but kind of busted open. You are going to cut me a slice of pie, right? Of the baked pie.
Mhm.
Put some baked beans on top of it, and then heat the whole thing up with the baked beans on it
Oh, okay.
for extra flavor.
Do you want it on the side or do you want it on the top?
Just bust it open where the meat is exposed
Oh,
and put
okay.
it up on the meat, honey.
Okay.
You're kind of, you know,
Okay. I think I get what you're saying.
okay. Well, I made a shepherd's pie or a casserole the other day. It's just filled full of meat and stuff, and it has. I mixed up. I used mashed potatoes with butter and 2 eggs, and 4 tablespoons full of plain flour, and made a batter using potatoes, and I used that as a crust in my casserole. And then I cooked all this meat, hamburger and mushrooms and bell peppers and all kinds of cumin and seasoning and stuff in the meat, onions, green onions, parsley, all that cooked in the meat. Then I put that meat in the middle and took the rest of the potatoes that's infused with flour, eggs, and butter, and I put it over the top of it, and I baked it like a pie. And after 30 minutes of baking, when the crust began to brown up on the top, I covered the top in cheddar cheese and let it see. Well, we've been eating on it for a couple of days, and it's so good. The potatoes just full of rich butter flavor. Now, 4 tablespoons of flour in your potatoes after you mash them up real good just makes it like a crust. And when you cut it, it comes out like a slice of pie. And every bite you eat is not like dough, it's like buttered potatoes. You have a meat pie with a buttered potato crust. Damn, it's good. But I've got some left over, and she's going to put me some baked beans on the top of mine, cut right down on the meat. If it don't kill you, it'll make you feel good. you're gonna be thinking about all your life choices while eating eating your lunch. Oh, yes. I had a friend, Major Fred Pettit. Major Fred Pettit. I buried him. I was the executor to his estate.
So I'm not. No, it's not. So you want it on here? This right here.
I want that busted open. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you what's called busting open. Well, first of all, let me show them there's a slice of my
Shepherd's pie.
there's my shepherd pie, and she's gonna bust this open right here. And when that flops over, then you're gonna put.
Okay, I just wanted to
You're
make
gonna
sure.
put the beans right up on where the 2 pieces of meat and there stuff. There we go. You're gonna put some beans right up in there.
Right. Okay, I just wanted. I had it right
Put a wet towel over it. Put it in the microwave, and when the
Okay,
beans start steaming, it's gonna be good.
I want cheese on top. Was there cheese on top?
Huh?
Was there cheese on top?
No more cheese.
Okay. So thank you.
All right, honey. Uh, anyhow, yeah, I made that the other day, and now that just come out of the refrigerator, but that crust is so good. It doesn't have a flour taste. It has a baked potato with meat. And I had leftover baked beans from yesterday. So instead of leaving them go to waste, I'm gonna put them on top of it, on top of the meat there, and heat it up. And it should be good. Anyhow, God bless each and every one of you. You just spent 3 hours and 1 minute with Old Mac, and I want to thank y'all for coming over and go fast. My God, I'm happy that you came in and talked about some of the things that you brought up. Yeah, the Nimitz has a steep history um, of serving the world. I love the old Nimitz. I've eaten so much food on the Nimitz there. It's an admiral ship. The Nimitz is a flagship, and being a flagship, it's 5-star dining. Never a bad meal on the Nimitz. Great steaks. You can have your eggs fixed the way you want. Now I always eat in officer's mess or chief mess, they call it. That's the better eating right there. If you eat chief mess, you're gonna have you get to fix the eggs the way you want. The steak is gonna come out just the way you like it. Um, you don't have to worry about speed and time. Get it gobbled down, squat and gobbled. You don't have to do none of that stuff. Hey, let me go ahead and say 7-3 all around, and thanks for all those that come and join in with us today. And if I get a little bit old and morbid about dying and stuff like that, just kind of get me back, bump me on the shoulder, and get me going back in a better direction there, because that's just part of our life. We never want to become hardened to it. One of the greatest human emotions is the ability to cry, and never ever put yourself or your friends down for shedding a tear. It cleanses the soul. It makes us the humans God created. Bye bye. Love every one of you.